Yo, what up? This is Stubborn Ahole, and this is going to be episode 2 of Dubstep production tutorials. I'm going to cover some synths and wobbles in this tutorial. It's probably going to be 2 parts long because we got a lot to talk about. I'm not going to cover any actual sound making because there's so many tutorials on how to make certain sounds and whatnot already that are out there. So just put in the research, put in the time, and you should have your own sound and your own flavor that you like. So I'm not going to cover how to make an actual sound, but I'm going to cover some tricks and tips and stuff that I do to make them sound right and professional and give you a little bit of flavor at the same time. So here's the beat that I have where we left off on episode 1. So nothing's changed there. So far I have 3 different instruments right here that I'm going to use for breakdowns and like an intro to the song. First, I have a higher end gangster sounding lead. And that's cool for the high end. So I also have the lower end bass. And I even have a mid-range type of synth. So I layer these all 3 together so I can get the desired effect. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Shit! Right there. So, once again, here we go. Back to the mixing board. Let's just label these so it's a little easier to ID. Intro mid. Intro bass is fine. And then we'll do intro high. My high sound. Okay, so we'll start off with the high. The high sound, because it's already a high sound, the main thing I do is EQ it and kind of shine those sounds out. Okay, so right there's better. That's good. I pretty much gain it a little bit on the highs right here, and I take away from the mids because this instrument specifically, I'm layering with 3 instruments total. So if they're all over the place, it's going to sound really muddy. So when I layer stuff, you got to kind of be careful and be gentle. Like obviously you can't have them turned up too loud either. That's why I have these all 3 almost similar in volume and really low. So when you get 3 littles, it makes a lot of awesome. Get it? Okay. I always take out between the 100 and 200 range as well because that's kind of where the kicks and the punches comes from my beat, and I don't want my beat competing with my other instruments. So that's that. Let me mute these other ones for a second so we just kind of focus on this. Okay, so what I run on my instruments too is Ozone 5. I love Ozone 5 because it kind of gives you tons of tools all in one. So on my Ozone 5 for this instrument, I'm running compression, which is called dynamics. I'm running a thick and wide compression to kind of thicken up the high-end sound a little bit. And then I run a stereo imager, which is just for stereo spreading and imaging. And then a harmonic exciter, which kind of gives it more of a gritty, rough, kind of really lets that gangsterish lead type sound shine by adding some harmonic exciter to it. It makes a big difference in the sound. Great. As you can hear, it's got a nice high pitch, high little lead coming out there that really shines in the high end. So that's that. I'm gonna go down to the lower part, the bass. This is a nice little low end bass, Neptune's. Reminds me of like Pharrell or a Neptune's beat type bass. Same thing, just got EQing. You could even pull away from this a little bit more. Pump this a little bit higher, not too much, because later on I'm also going to have some wobbles with this little bass. So I don't, even though it's a bass sound, I don't want it too heavy on the sub bass because I'm going to actually have some sub bass with riding over it, and it sounds a little muddy and when they compete. But besides that, I mean, very little EQing just to make it shine. Just where I feel it's kind of low, where I feel it's low, I boost it up around here a little bit because I like the way that sounds. And as you can see from the analyzer, it kind of falls off on the highs, which is perfect because we don't want the highs. We have highs coming from our other instrument. So the analyzer is important because once you start having too many frequencies overlap all at the same time, it's going to sound like shit balls. So once again, I run ozone in just different presets. I'm not a master at this, so I kind of just play with the presets. I kind of go through it and just play with the presets, and until it sounds right, or I guess there is no right or wrong, but the sound I'm looking for in particular, so it sounds how I want it to sound. The thing, I run compression, some more stereo imaging, and another harmonic exciter. And then we got the mids here. So not too much high coming out of this, which is good, and not too much bass coming out of this because we already got those covered. So I want mostly some mids. I boosted the highs a little bit just so it kind of sparkles a little bit because I don't want it to sound like a dull instrument. And it was a little dull for my taste originally. So I added a little shine on it. But it should be heavy right here around the mid-range, and that's kind of what we're looking for because we already got a high and a low. And it is, but you can tell by the analyzer, it's high here, drops off here, drops off here, which is the two sections we already got. So now we got 3 instruments, and they're all in different frequency ranges and not really overlapping too bad, which is good. I'm just going to put a little bit of compression on this instrument. Whoops, because I don't have any compression on here. And my laptop really can't handle this shit. It's already struggling, if you can hear it. I mean, I know if you freeze up some of the tracks, so if you actually go through your MIDI tracks and right-click them and bounce or make sampler track or whatever it is, bounce in place or whatever it's like. If you right-click here and go to bounce in place, it will actually bounce just this track to an audio file track because MIDI tracks eat up a lot more CPU, and that's all I use is MIDI tracks because I don't really dig samples. So I use all my own VSTs that I made, sounds that I made, and I use MIDI tracks. But that kills your CPU on your computer. And once they're wave tracks, it's way less intensive on the CPU. So as you can tell, I keep running out of CPU, so it keeps stopping. If I really wanted to get around that, I could just go through and bounce some of these in place, and that's how you get around that if you're having that problem. But for now, it's okay, because it's not too bad yet. And I'm still working on a lot of these instruments. Once I have it in wave, I lose some of the functionality that I like to mess with, or the patterns. So until I know it's done, I'm not bouncing anything to wave. So I'm just going to add a little bit of compression here on this guy to make it a little more punchy. There we go. That's kind of the sound I'm looking for. It's got a lot of reverb on there too. It's kind of cool because when it's in the mix, it kind of lets it drop in and out just enough around the beat to where it sounds properly. So now that I covered those 3, let's go back and hear them all again together. Yeah. Woo! Anyways, I think you get it. Ding, 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 ding. Anyways, all right, we got it. Let's see, how long is this video so far? 10 minutes. Okay, got time. So, next thing I want to cover is a little bit of diversity. So let's say, for example, you have a melody like this that we already have. And you kind of want to maybe flip it, or maybe you play this melody for 16 bars or something, and then you're like, oh, well, I want it to change. I don't want it to be so repetitive, but at the same time, I want to kind of keep the same melody so it's not, you know, totally different. It doesn't make sense. What I like to do is I like to use the agitator. I like to use the agitator a lot. I really love the agitator. It lets you take an existing sound and an existing pattern, and you can use the same exact pattern, and it kind of switches it up and flips it, and you have a similar sound, but at the same time it's different. You know what I'm saying? So this is the original sound. Damn it. The original sound. And now here it is agitated. See how it gives it that different flavor? And it's exactly the same instrument. That's the cool part. It's exactly the same. Right here in Synth 1, it's this ARP crushed bubble. The only difference is I add some agitator. So this is that unagitated. Then right here I have the same thing. It's the same exact thing, but it's agitated, and I believe I have it on 1/8 notes. And 50% on the gate, which keeps it kind of choppy, which keeps it chopped up. If you turn the gate up all the way, it's still agitated, but there's not chops in between it. So I like putting it at 50% because it kind of makes it more bouncy because there's more chops in there. So you can see the difference. This one, I guess you really can't tell the difference too much because the instrument pattern itself is already choppy, so you can't tell as much, but you can tell. You'll be able to tell next time. So that kind of flips it. So that way you have 16 bars. Well, in this case, it's only like... There you go, see? Now you have a nice little 16 right here, and it's different, which is cool because it gives it that diversity, when in reality, it's the same exact instrument. Just the agitator makes that much of a difference to where you have a different sound, and your song doesn't sound too repetitive, but you're still keeping the original flavor and the original taste that you wanted in the first place. I use this technique a lot. I mean, it's really great. I guess I'll probably end the video here since we're running out of time. And then I'll make the wobble on the next episode. I'll record another episode to cover some of my wobbles. I like to do 2 different types of wobbles, like a hard bass wobble, and then I do a higher pitched wobble, which is really fun. It's really trendy right now too. As you can see, that's a little bit of taste of what's coming in episode 3. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and a little bit of the synth, and a little bit of the flavor, and a little bit of layering techniques that I showed you. Stay tuned for episode 3, The Wobble. Stubborn out.